The stage of America's Got Talent has seen countless hopefuls step into its blinding lights. But on this particular night, something feels different. The audience senses it before anything even happens. The theater is buzzing with anticipation, the kind that comes before a moment no one expects, but that everyone will remember. Backstage, a Filipino man in his late 20s adjusts the collar of his simple white shirt. He isn't wearing the full, flashy rhinestone jumpsuit that most Elvis impersonators bring out. Instead, he looks understated. Quiet confidence wrapped in modesty. His hair is neatly slicked back. Not exaggerated, but enough to show a hint of Elvis's classic style. As he waits to be called, he closes his eyes and whispers something in Tagalog, "Para sa'yo, papa." For you, Dad. When the stagehand finally motions him forward, he takes a deep breath and steps into the spotlight. The audience falls into a hush, curious. His walk is steady but humble, almost shy. The judges immediately notice his presence, there but not attention-seeking, calm but carrying a strange magnetic pull. Heidi leans closer, squinting slightly as if trying to figure out why he feels familiar. Sophia tilts her head, giving him a warm smile. Howie watches with raised eyebrows, already intrigued. But it's Simon Cowell who reacts the most noticeably. He folds his hands, studying the man intently. Something about him, his aura, his stillness, his expression, makes Simon sit up straighter. He senses a story behind those eyes, a quiet depth that performers rarely bring when they first appear on stage. "Hello," Sophia starts, smiling kindly. "What's your name?" The man clears his throat softly. "My name is Marco Reyes. I'm from the Philippines." At the mention of his home country, a pocket of the audience erupts into excited cheers. Marco flashes a small, grateful smile, almost bashful. The judges smile too. There's always something special about contestants who carry their roots proudly. "And what will you be doing for us today?" Heidi asks. Marco hesitates, not out of fear, but out of emotion. I'll be singing an Elvis Presley song." This statement sparks a ripple through the crowd. Some laugh knowingly, others murmur with cautious curiosity. Another Elvis impersonator. There have been many over the years, some good, many forgettable. Simon raises one eyebrow, the prove-it eyebrow that has crushed thousands of dreams on stage, but Marco doesn't flinch. Instead, he places one hand over his heart as he continues. "My father loved Elvis. He used to play his songs every night when I was a child. He taught me how to sing by making me repeat Elvis records with him. He passed away last year, and this performance is for him." The crowd softens. Even Simon's expression shifts. Still stern but gentler now. There is sincerity in Marco's voice, a vulnerability so raw that even before he sings a note, the moment feels heavy with meaning. The background lights fade into a deep blue haze. The stage grows quiet. Marco takes his spot at the center, gripping the microphone stand with both hands. For a second, he closes his eyes again. The audience watches him closely, sensing the gravity of what this means to him. The first soft strum of the guitar plays through the speakers. A wave of nostalgic warmth sweeps through the theater. Everyone recognizes the opening notes. It's not one of Elvis's loud, energetic hits. It's a soulful ballad, the kind that feels like a confession wrapped in melody. A bold choice, especially for AGT, where big songs often win the crowd. But Marco isn't here to impress with flash. He's here to honor his father. The judges exchange curious glances. Howie nods slowly. Heidi sits upright. Sophia holds her breath. Simon watches without blinking. Then Marco opens his mouth, and the world stops. His voice isn't an imitation. It's a resurrection. Smooth, deep, honey-sweet with a touch of grit. Not forced, not theatrical. It is Elvis, but it is also unmistakably Marco, a blend of heritage and heart. The audience gasps collectively. People shift in their seats, stunned. A couple in the front row look at each other with wide eyes, whispering, "Oh my God, he sounds real." Marco continues, his voice flowing effortlessly, carrying every note with intention. But it's the emotion, that is what sets him apart. He sings like someone who lived each lyric. His tone carries longing, grief, admiration, and a son's eternal love for his father. He sings like he's telling the world a story. Not Elvis's story, but his own. In the judges' panel, Heidi's lips part slightly in wonder. Sophia places a hand over her heart. Howie nods along, impressed. But the most striking reaction comes from Simon. Simon's stern facade crumbles the moment Marco hits a soft falsetto note. His eyes widen, not dramatically, but enough for the camera to catch. He leans back slowly, blinking as if to process what he just heard. Then he leans forward, elbows on the desk, completely captivated. Simon isn't just listening, he's studying Marco like a puzzle that shouldn't exist but does. Like a memory of Elvis has materialized in front of him. Like he's hearing something that defies logic. As Marco moves into the deeper section of the song, his voice gains richness, strength, and an almost haunting familiarity. He doesn't mimic Elvis's accent too heavily. Instead, he lets the natural warmth of his Filipino tone blend with the classic Presley resonance. It's authentic, unique, beautiful. The crowd doesn't wait for the climax. People begin cheering halfway through the verse. A woman wipes tears from her eyes. A man lifts his phone to record even though he isn't supposed to. This is once-in-a-lifetime stuff, and he knows it. Backstage, the host is frozen, staring at the monitor. That's Elvis, but Filipino, he whispers, completely stunned. By the time Marco reaches the end of the verse, the energy in the room has shifted entirely. This is no longer a simple AGT audition. This is a moment, a tribute, a connection between generations, cultures, and hearts. As the intro fades and Marco prepares for the emotional lift of the chorus, the judges brace themselves for something unforgettable. The entire audience is on the edge of their seats. Even the cameramen lean forward subconsciously. Marco takes one last breath, a breath filled with memories, love, and courage. And then he prepares to deliver the note that will change everything. The transition from the quiet intro to the heart of the song happens like a slow sunrise, gentle at first, then suddenly overwhelming. Marco stands in the center of the AGT stage, still gripping the microphone stand, but now something has changed inside him. His eyes open wider, his shoulders relax, and his voice, already breathtaking, begins to deepen with emotion. He isn't just singing anymore, he's living the music. The first powerful note of the chorus rings through the theater like a bolt of electricity. The crowd gasps. Some stand, others freeze with their hands covering their mouths. The energy in the room thickens until it feels almost physical, pressing against everyone's chest. Marco closes his eyes briefly, as if feeling his father's presence behind the music. When he opens them again, they're glistening, not with fear, but with love and pain and pride, all mixed together. His voice swells with emotion so pure that even the judges lean in unconsciously. He's no longer performing for applause. He's giving everything he has to a ghost, to a memory, to a man who taught him to love music. The camera zooms in on Marco's face. It's full of passion, vulnerability, and something indescribably human. Every note vibrates with a story the audience doesn't need explained. They feel it. And then it happens. He hits the high note. Not a scream, not a show-off vocal. A controlled, soaring, heartbreakingly beautiful note that cuts straight through the room like a blade of light. The audience rises instantly. Instantly. There isn't a split second of hesitation. People are on their feet before their brains even register what they're doing. Hands fly over hearts. Some shout, "Wow!" Others are visibly trembling with emotion. The camera pans across faces soaked with tears. A teenage girl clutches her friend's hand, eyes wide as if she's witnessing a miracle. A middle-aged man wipes his face with his sleeve, looking embarrassed by how deeply the performance is affecting him. A woman whispers, "Oh my God! This is unreal," her lips shaking as she speaks. Even backstage, the host appears emotional. His jaw hangs open slightly, his eyes glued to the monitor. "This is unbelievable," he whispers, as if afraid to break the magic by speaking too loudly. Back on stage, Marco transitions into the next verse with perfect control. His voice softens again, but the emotion doesn't fade. It only changes shape. It becomes tender, honest, sacred. This is no longer a tribute. It's a confession. A confession of love to his father. A confession of longing. A confession of the dream he carried from childhood to this very stage. The audience senses all of it. Sofia Vergara places a trembling hand over her heart. She looks moved, deeply moved, like the performance is pulling something personal from her own history. Her eyes shine with unshed tears, and her face carries the soft expression of someone witnessing something rare. Heidi Klum is speechless. She leans forward, elbows on the table, mouth slightly open. Every time Marco hits a beautiful run or emotional swell, she shakes her head in disbelief, her blonde hair swaying gently with each motion. Howie Mandel watches with the intensity of a longtime performer who recognizes true artistry when he sees it. He nods slowly, thoughtfully, like he's analyzing every nuance of Marco's voice, but also like he's being moved in a way he didn't expect. And then there's Simon Cowell. Simon has seen every type of impersonator, tribute artist, and singer imaginable, but nothing, absolutely nothing, has prepared him for this. Halfway through the song, Simon stops taking notes. He sits completely still, eyes locked on Marco, lips slightly parted. The camera zooms in. Simon's eyes look glossy, not in a dramatic, overdone way, but in a way that says, this performance is touching something deep, something real, something human. Marco reaches the emotional center of the song, and this time, he lifts one hand from the microphone stand and presses it gently against his chest. His voice cracks, not from weakness, but from authenticity, the kind of crack that makes the heart feel heavier and lighter at the same time. The moment he does, the entire theater reacts. A soft wave of gasps, a quiet sob, a ripple of emotion that moves through the room like wind through trees. Marco doesn't shy away from the emotion. He leans into it. His voice trembles slightly, then steadies, rising again in strength. The courage in that moment is palpable. He's giving the audience everything: his pain, his memories, his father's legacy, his own identity as a Filipino Elvis, and his journey across oceans to stand on this stage. Each note feels like a piece of his heart being placed gently into the hands of the world. As he approaches the finale, the music shifts into a dramatic swell. The orchestra behind the track rises, the spotlight brightens, and Marco prepares for the final, heart-shattering note. The judges brace themselves. Simon sits forward, eyes locked on Marco's face. His expression says everything: respect, admiration, disbelief. Marco takes a breath. The room goes silent, completely silent. Then, he unleashes the final note. It's powerful, it's raw, it's impossibly controlled, yet filled with emotion almost too large for one human voice. People aren't just crying now, they're sobbing. The crowd explodes into applause even before the note finishes. A group of fans jump up, shouting. Others are wiping their faces, stunned. A woman in the third row looks heavenward as if thanking the universe for letting her witness this moment. Sophia looks like she might cry. Heidi claps her hands over her mouth. Howie raises his hands into the air, shaking his head with awe. And Simon Cowell stands, slowly, deliberately, reverently. He doesn't stand often, not unless a performance truly deserves it. And this one does. As Marco finishes the note, Simon's expression softens completely. His face reflects something rarely seen in him, a mixture of sadness, admiration, and genuine emotional impact. Marco lowers the microphone. His chest rises and falls heavily with breath. His eyes glisten with tears. For a moment, he just stands there, overwhelmed, vulnerable, human. The music fades, but the echo of his voice lingers longer than the silence, and with that, the emotional explosion is complete. Marco hasn't just performed, he hasn't just impressed, he hasn't just imitated Elvis. He has touched the soul of every single person in that room. For a moment after the music stops, the theater remains suspended in absolute stillness. It's the kind of silence that feels alive, as if every breath, every heartbeat, even every thought has paused to honor what just happened. Marco stands frozen at the center of the stage, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, eyes shimmering with raw emotion. Then, without warning, the entire theater erupts. A tidal wave of applause crashes through the room. The audience shoots to their feet in a unified explosion of cheers and screams. People clap so hard their hands turn red. A woman wipes her tears on her sleeve, shaking her head in disbelief. Several fans jump up in excitement, yelling, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" Others press their hands over their hearts, overwhelmed. The cameras capture the electricity in the room. A man in the front row is crying openly, tears streaming down his cheeks. A teenage boy hugs his mother. Strangers turn to each other, mouthing the same words. "That was unbelievable. That was the best thing I've heard. That wasn't just singing. That was magic." Marco stands in shock as the applause washes over him. He covers his mouth with both hands. His shoulders tremble. For a moment, he tries to hold back his tears, but he fails. 2 tears escape, traced by the golden stage lights before falling down his cheeks. Backstage, the host can barely contain himself. He's pacing with excitement, hands on his head. Oh my, this is viral. This is world class. That's the moment of the season, he says breathlessly. Even crew members pause from their tasks, unable to look away from the monitor. But the most powerful reactions come from the judges. Sophia is the first to speak, though for several seconds she can't form the words. She presses a hand over her heart, blinking through the emotional fog. "Oh my God," she whispers, her voice trembling. You touched my heart so deeply." She leans forward, eyes shining with sincerity. "That was not an impression. That was not karaoke. That was your soul on stage. You honored Elvis, yes. But more importantly," she pauses, letting her words sink into the silent room, "you honored your father, and we all felt it." The audience cheers loudly at her words, many nodding in agreement. Heidi's reaction is more dramatic. She raises her hands up and lets them fall onto the desk in disbelief. "Oh, Marco." She sighs, shaking her head with a smile so emotional it could break. "I don't even know what to say. It was perfect, absolutely perfect." She straightens, still stunned. "You didn't just sound like Elvis. You made us feel like Elvis was here again. And your voice has something even he didn't have. That emotion, that purity, that pain." She brushes a tear from the corner of her eye. This was pure magic. Marco looks down bashfully, overwhelmed, placing his hand on his chest. Howie leans back in his chair, clasping his hands together thoughtfully before speaking. "You know," he says, "I've been doing this show for many years. I've seen Elvis impersonators, singers, performers of all kinds. But you," he points at Marco with a soft smile, "you brought something new, something real, something unforgettable." The audience cheers again. "You didn't just sing a song. You brought your father onto this stage with you. And you shared him with all of us. That takes courage. That takes heart. That takes talent." Howie's tone deepens, making his praise feel even heavier. "I think Elvis himself would be proud of what you just did." Marco closes his eyes briefly, swallowing hard as fresh tears pool at the edges. Then the camera turns to Simon. The crowd quiets. Everyone knows something special is coming. Simon doesn't speak immediately. He stands, slowly, with intention, and the audience gasps. A Simon Cowell standing ovation is rare, legendary. Marco's eyes widen. He looks like he might collapse from the emotion of it. Simon smooths his shirt, steps forward, and places both hands on the judge's desk. His face is steady, serious, but his eyes are soft in a way viewers have almost never seen. "That," he begins, voice low and resonant, "was one of the most beautiful auditions I have ever heard." The crowd screams. Some people literally jump up and down. Simon continues, his tone deepening with sincerity. "You didn't imitate Elvis. You didn't pretend to be him. You brought his spirit onto this stage in your own way, a way that felt honest, pure, and completely unexpected." Marco's hands fly to his mouth again as he fights tears. "You know," Simon adds, glancing briefly at the other judges, "I think we sometimes forget what this show is truly about, finding someone who touches our hearts." He points toward Marco gently. "And tonight, you reminded us." The theater roars with applause. Marco finally breaks, tears rolling freely down his face. Simon's voice softens even more. "I'll tell you the truth. Somewhere between the middle of your performance and the end, I forgot I was judging. I just listened. And that hasn't happened in a very long time." He sits back down slowly, nodding with deep appreciation. As the judges finish speaking, the audience starts chanting, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" The chant gets louder, stronger, more insistent. A golden light begins to glow faintly on the stage, teasing the moment. Marco looks around, stunned, overwhelmed, clutching the microphone to his chest. Sophia looks at Heidi. Heidi looks at Howie. They all glance at Simon. The audience holds its breath, waiting for someone to rise. Marco stares at the deck, tears dripping onto his shaking hands. Whether the golden buzzer is hit or saved for later, one thing is unmistakable. Marco has delivered one of the most emotional, unforgettable, tear-inducing performances in AGT history. The kind of moment that trends worldwide. The kind viewers replay again and again. The kind that changes a life forever.